John Butler, welcome back to Australian Musician.
Hey, how are you?
Good, mate. It's been a while since we've had a chat to you. I was just flicking through some old magazines, and it hasn't been since we were in print that we last spoke to you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
A whole other world, a whole other era.
yeah. So it's good to chat. We're talking to you today about Running River, the first release in a four-part series that you're bringing out. You're calling the Four Seasons. Where did the four album concept come from?
It came from a complete disintegration of direction. I was I it's kind of interesting kind of process in a way, and a beautiful gift at the end of the day, but I about almost ooh, almost 3 years ago now, maybe a little bit more. My band had kind of disbanded and quit, and I put together a new one really quickly to finish some commitments I had in the Northern Hemisphere, and that was great and a great success. And then I had planned to go solo, and just recalibrate a little bit. And at the same time, COVID happened, and at the same time, I started giving palliative care to my father at home. I moved his whole living room into my bedroom, basically, and my wife went over to lockdown Victoria to give palliative care to her father, and then they both passed away somewhere in the middle of COVID, within 40 hours of each other. Um, and in amongst that, I was making an album by myself, engineering it and everything, which I'd never really done before. And somewhere in the aftermath of my our father's passing and ex anxiety kind of completely peaking out, and the remnants or the reverberations of PTSD and some other stuff that had been lurking around in my psyche, and this album, the technical side started just getting away from me, to the point where like I had, hundreds of tracks going. I did not know why they were doing what they were doing. I couldn't get things to do what I wanted to do, and I going to the studio at home was becoming a bit of a stress. And I was just like, I don't know if I can finish this album. I don't know if I want to work with people. Right now I'm feeling pretty uh yeah, not wanting to deal with the complexities of other human beings. I thought I was complex enough. And I just kind of threw my hands up in the air. I was like, I don't know what to do. Well, I had to surrender, which is interestingly the first offering of this new album. But basically, in amongst the surrender, like often happens with kind of relinquishing control, is leave space for something. And in that, in the echo of surrendering, I had a download, and the download was me. It was kind of initiated by me going, how could I possibly ever have a band again, or make a record? Or like, I just, I'd kind of broken down so much that I was like, I don't know if I have what it takes to do this, especially working with human beings and all their stuff and all my stuff. And it's weird being a performer, a boss, an employee, a band leader, and a roommate on a bus for 8 months a year. It's a very complex amount of hats to wear. The privilege to wear those hats. I'm not complaining, but it's tricky. Anyways, I had this download, and it was like, okay, heal. You need to heal yourself, and then you can begin again, and then do a solo album, and then maybe a band album. So it was like this four-part step, and I saw it as four seasons. And the healing was literally just healing the anxiety, the grieving, the trauma. And so that was the ambient album. It's like, let's make this ambient album that I've always wanted to make, that was meant to be for practitioners and practices alike to use in their wellness practices. And something I'd always wanted to do. I'd heard a lot of different instrumental music being on, kinesiology, reflexology, massage tables, yoga rooms. And I was like, it'd be cool to make some of this music. And it seems simple. And what I need is simple, because I've just walked away from 3 years of work and hundreds of tracks. I need simple,
Yeah.
break it back down. And so, yeah, I made that. And at the same time, the whole thing was, it came to me, it's like heal, begin again, solo, and band. And so heal is the ambient, begin again is make another busking tape, an instrumental album. Like my very first release was an instrumental album. So it's my second instrumental album that I've finished recording and I'm mixing now. And then I'll make a solo album, which I'm actually in the process of making as we speak, the third season. And once that's all done and I tour that, I'll be ready to do the fourth season, which is work with several different human beings in a collaborative way. But it came about that way. It came about in a complete disillusion and rebuild. I needed to recalibrate and rebuild.
So obviously, a lot of the emotion that went into this first album, you must have been thinking about your dad. Tell me about your father. Was he a musician? Was he into music?
Uh, Not really. No, he wasn't. I wouldn't say he was into music. He'd listen to it from time to time. He loved good country music. Uh, and he wasn't a musician, but he's the reason why I was passed down my grandfather's slide guitar. Um, uh, yeah, one of the reasons is because he wasn't a musician. See, my grandmother said to all her 8 children, whoever learns how to play the guitar. This is after my grandfather passed away in a bushfire in 1958, and all the kids were like from 1 to 10, very young family. And she just told them all, hey, whoever learns the guitar gets this guitar done. And none of them learned. So it's because my dad's not a musician and that I got given my grandfather's guitar at the age of 16 when my grandmother saw that I was literally the only person who was still really into guitar. So yeah, I wasn't really thinking about my dad a whole lot, during the recording in a very literal way. It was just the aftermath of, as I said, 10 years of pretty ramping anxiety, realization that there's a lot of PTSD going on through violence, at the hands of my father, actually. Um, and uh and then the passing, like the palliative, doing that intensive palliative care period of time in our house, and having a 16-year-old son going through it, and a daughter in her last year of high school doing ATAR. It was like marital problems. It was like when it rains, it pours. And so, making this album was just a way of starting very simply and very gently and without a lot of expectation. You don't make an ambient wellness, whatever you want to call it, yoga, meditation album to sell or to gain accolades, that's for sure. Not that you should be doing any release for that reason, but and so yeah, it was very much a personal journey just to slow it down. And it's always about the journey, not the destination. I knew making this album would help regain my confidence and recording, and also the act of doing a very simple chord progression, like usually 1 or 2 chords max, and a very simple plucking pattern for 10 minutes straight, because there's 10 songs, they're all 10 minutes long, and they're very slow and trance-like and repetitive. Um, Doing that for 10 minutes straight has its own effect on your nervous system. And my nervous system is pretty fried from my life. And so yeah, the act was the healing, and going into that with one other person, Dave Mann on engineer. He's an amazing individual, and playing those songs very slowly and conjuring these songs into life in a very kind of peaceful way, like this, playing the same chord progression for 10 minutes straight in a plucking pattern. And it's very trance-like uh kind of state you get into, and then adding very subtle things on top of it, and the guitar beats that I was doing to a delay pedal, these heartbeat kind of patterns, they all were just having their own sonic healing on me, which music has always been a conduit and a medium for that for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, the process was the healing, you know. And then I had a product at the end, or I had a piece at the end that I could offer to other people.
Yeah. So there are no other musicians on the album. I'm thinking like,
I think yeah, no, Dave sang a little bit. Dave sang on two songs, on two of the chants, because there's two chants like CHANTS that I made up. I didn't really want to do any other kind of cultures chants because I didn't have any relationship with them. So most of them are very slow instrumentals, but there's two chants and one Native American flute song that I've played for the last 30 years on a flute that I bought when I was 20. Um, yeah, and he played a little bit of synthesizer on one song. And then other than that, I just played all the percussion and all the guitars and the little singing that there is, I did all that as well.
yeah. So how planned out were the tracks?
The download of the actual, once I made a decision, once I got the Four Seasons download of like, oh, this is a way to rebuild. I sat in my living room with a loop pedal next to the fire and downloaded most of the album in about a 3 hour sitting. I just put my voice memos on and started making up very very simple beds, um, and looping them. And I was like, oh, that's it. That's all it needs. And so yeah, I wrote most of it in 3 hours, and then took it to the studio and learned how to break those apart, like, let's do that loop first and that one and then build. And then things came, I brought my steel pans and I have a whole bunch of tuned percussion and otherwise that I could add to it and kind of embellish. And that was fun because that was the next point, it was like I improvised the first part, solidified it and broke it down so I could understand it, recorded it, and kept on improvising on top. And yeah, it was a lot. It was very fun, very creative. You're not trying to get to the pre-chorus in 50 seconds. You're not trying to make a hook, that's gonna be an earworm. You're not trying to be clever with lyrics so that Dylan will be impressed. Like you are like making stuff to like hopefully people can, fall asleep easier to. You're making music to like bring down the heart rate. These are all the things I was thinking about, and having lent into ambient music on the road to get away from industrial noise of the bus generators and the airplanes and the backstage noise, and just looking for some kind of silence to even get a meditation practice in, as I was just 30 years into a very adrenalized lifestyle. Um, so yeah, it was extremely therapeutic just to make the music. And I remember Dave just going, "This is the funnest project I've ever worked on. It's so creative and it's not trying to be anything. It's just, you're just trying to make these things feel good, and often Dave and I would go, cool, we finished that part of the song. Let's have a listen over to it." And if more than once we were both nodding off after 9 minutes 30, like, oh, okay, that works. Like I'd recommend this music for almost anything, other than driving. Don't drive with this music. Please don't drive with this music. But yeah, you could do anything from meditation, massage, acupuncture, magic mushrooms, put your kids to sleep on it, stretch, work, um, but don't drive to it.
Oh, what about the track order? Was that important?
Yeah, check order is always important as far as arc in a journey. Obviously in this day and age, with people being suggested songs off their streaming service every 5 seconds, and you know, I think there's an argument that track order doesn't matter so much. But when you make a body of work, I think it's something to think about. And so yeah, it wanted to start off with a song that was going to, in a way, be the calling card of the palette, which was this guitar driven, guitar beat, spacious kind of thing that was Surrender, which is the first offering. And then just try to make a lovely journey the same way you'd write a set list, just like how can I take, we definitely want to get to the peak and we want to look at, get to the crest of that wave. But where we, where are the valleys and the meandering paths and the quiet the quiet groves that we're going to get to before we start getting to the pinnacle.
Yeah. So what was the main guitar you used, and did you mic it any differently?
Yeah, I did some really interesting thing on the miking front, and Dave, man, just like absolutely killed it as far as like hearing my concept and then doing it. So the main guitar was a National square neck resonator, which just seemed to really lend itself to what I was doing. I think it's also what I was using when I got the download with the loop pedal in my living room. And then I'm doing lots of guitar beats, and so guitar beats usually are being put through the bridge pickup, and they don't sound good going from pickup straight to ear or to the recording. They have to go through a PA. Acoustic bridge pickup sounds the best when it's amplified. The last journey of it is it has to go through air to get its full sound. So I had two mics on my guitar and a DI. I'd send that DI straight to the recording, but also split it and sent it to another room into a PA. And the PA had big room mics on and a close mic. And there was a guitar amplifier in another room for my magnetic because I have two pickups on my guitar. And so I have this beautiful clear mic system on my guitars. Above my guitars, I have a really good dual pickup system going to the DI, but I also have this DI being amplified into another room with this big room sound. So the acoustic sound is like quadraphonic. You can walk through the acoustic sound, let alone what's happening on the guitar amp, you know. And so that was the general thing. And make these big guitar beat beds of and this room just like breathing around this beat. And then I would record the next track over the top of that, which would usually be a very simple guitar plucking pattern. And then over that, I would maybe either put some tuned like steel pan, like in a very hypnotic, repetitive pedal. And then I'd last bit I would just get on my slide guitar and try to play not as much as I normally do and just noodle around and play very kind of, Celtic, Indian, and bluesy kind of spacious um, sentences, if you will.
Yeah. So would you ever consider playing this stuff live?
I have actually. I went on. I was at a part of a Michael Franti concert, and Michael Franti's huge into yoga, and a lot of is a festival of his, and one aspect of his festival was I'd play a show, and the other aspect was like, and can you play music to a yoga session? And I was just like, there's no way I'd play my normal music to a yoga session. Like da, ba, da, da. But I just made this ambient album. Strangely enough, I just made this ambient. I was like, yeah, I could do this. And so I did. I was the first performance was playing to people doing yoga while a teacher was speaking and walking people through the practice. And it was like surprisingly so much fun. Like played for like just 20 minutes straight, just creating these awesome beds, and then also be able to kind of like live, like bring in my delay swells with my volume pedal and bring them back and cut and like just like really cool. And I'm doing it again at a festival called Prana Fest, which is a big wellness festival and music festival. That's one of the things I'm doing now. So yeah, it's ended up being this thing that I can like um the beautiful thing about what I've always done, I guess, is I've played really acoustic folk music like a rock and roll artist who loves hip hop. And so I've been able to get on lots of different festivals, but I'd never thought I'd see myself at a wellness festival. But yeah, now I can play my regular show and then offer this unexpected other show, which every time I do it, I feel like I've actually just had a lovely meditation. It's so because it's so hypnotic and it's so lovely to play that way. You know, it's a lovely change. So yeah, I have performed it and will continue by the looks of it.
Yeah. Just a quick one on something else. I recently spoke with Jeff Lang. Um,
Ah.
and he was telling me about the duets album that's coming out, and you appear on that. How far do you and Jeff go back?
Man, Jeff and I, sorry, I just had to check something really quick to make sure I'm running on
Oh,
time. Yeah, Jeff and I go back a long time now. I mean, I opened up for Jeff. I first saw Jeff when I was still busking. So this is like 30 years ago. And I saw Jeff, and I don't know if you've had those moments as a musician or a music lover where they're like pivotal moments. They're like very formative. They kind of tattoo and sear the way into your mind. You'll never forget them. You know exactly where you were, and what happened. And it's strange how when you have those moments, they become very tattooed in. Anyways, I saw Jeff playing at Fly By Night Club in Fremantle, and I thought, I want to do that. I don't know what he's doing. I want to be that good. I want to be that flowing. I love this folk thing that just gets really distorted. And dude's just a boss. He's still a boss. And then I opened for him at Mojo's, and I remember that acoustic amplified thing that he did, and that he kind of pioneered a lot in a lot of ways, and was influenced by pedal steel that had volume pedals and all that stuff. I realized, but I'd never seen anybody do it like him. And I remember opening up from at Mojo's, and after the show going, I want to do that. Can I do that? Like I asked him, it was like young Skywalker going to to Obi-Wan and like, please, Master, can I use the lightsaber? It's like I asked him, I was like, can I do that? Do you mind if I do that? And I remember him looking at me now going, who's this kid? And what is he asking me for? But and we've had a long relationship since then. He's a very funny man. Always an inspiration, a dear friend of mine. And we have a relationship that crosses a lot of other territory other than just music. And yeah, deep admiration, respect for everything about Jeff. Yeah.
all right, John. Well, you've got things to do. Running River is out on May 24th. And hopefully one day we'll be able to hear you play that live, and we can all nod off in front of you.
Yeah, pretty much. It's probably the only concert I'd be happy where people were falling asleep. Hey, thanks for your time, Greg. I really appreciate it.
No worries. It's a great album. I've really been enjoying it. And
Oh, thanks.
all
Thanks
the best.
heaps.
See you, mate.
Awesome, man. Be well. See ya.
Bye.